This is the Be One Change One podcast, where our mission is to help listeners define values, practice integrity, and inspire change.
Our vision is to mentor men and empower them to achieve more by taking responsibility for shaping their own lives.
He's CAS, an evolving man who has been shaped by adversity and continues to grow through his imperfections.
And he's Roscoe, an imperfect work in progress that tries to suck less every day.
Between us, we have over 40 years of Air Force fighter pilot experience with countless hours as trainers, instructors, and mentors.
Join us and learn to take responsibility for your own life as we dive into subjects from leadership to resilience to vulnerability.
Be the one who changes their course. Be decisive, driven, and purposeful. Set the example for others. Lead. We wish we'd had this show when we were younger men.
Be the one.
How does every fighter pilot story start? So there I was. Mountain Home Air Force Base, quite a few years ago. We're doing a gunfighter flag. It's something that the weapons officers at Mountain Home had put together over, a year or so. And
Was it still a composite wing back then? No, just strikes?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, they had gotten rid of the C models. The bores had gone on. This was 11 or 12, something like that.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
Oh, and just for the listeners, composite wing back in the day, the Air Force in the probably early 2000s decided to go to this composite wing structure where typically at bases you just have one airframe. But at a few different bases, they basically mixed them. So I know Mountain Home had like Strike Eagles, F-15Cs, and Vipers for a while.
They also had B-1s and AWACSs. This was back in the late 90s where they came up with the AEW concept, the Air Expeditionary Wing. And the idea was to take an entire wing commander all the way down, take the entire wing and deploy as an entity.
Yeah.
To where all you really need is some tanker support and you're good.
Yeah.
This is going to be a long story, so feel free to interrupt at any point.
Will do.
So, gunfighter flag was designed. The Mountain Home Range Complex it's pretty good, and it's just getting better and better and better. It won a bunch of awards from ACC, and they were getting money dumped into it. So they have all these really cool emitters and targets, and very good airspace, like big airspace.
Yeah, there's not much out there.
Not quite as big as Nellis.
Yeah,
but
nothing is.
Not a lot of restrictions.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty full up, man. And then they had some ATCAs, some add-ons to the airspace that we could activate for short periods of time and really expand the airface almost by double. And so we were getting units coming in we get E1s from Ellsworth to come over. We'd get the C models from Portland. We'd get the Growlers from Whidbey Island, and really put these big, robust exercises together. It was really cool. So I was doing my mission commander upgrade during one of these. And I'd already done the C. So the way that our mission commander upgrades went was you get a C1, do one.
What's a mission commander, by the way?
Mission commander. So you're the dude, like in charge of all these airplanes, 200 airplanes. You're the guy who has to coordinate the planning process and brief the plan to everyone. And then you make the decisions, the big muscle movement decisions airborne, so that you can ensure mission success.
Yeah.
Not to pat myself on the back, but it's kind of a big deal.
Yep.
Right. So anyways, my mission commander was a very robust. We had to knock down a pretty heavy line of defense from surface air missiles first, and while fighting the Red forces coming across, they had some really good joint engagement tactics going on. It was a very complex problem. And then we had 30 or 40 targets that the strike package had to hit. So there's, maybe 100 airplanes involved on the blue side and probably at least that on the red side. It's a pretty big exercise. So we go through the whole planning process. One of our contingencies was, and guys, contingency planning is probably one of the most important pieces of the planning process. That's where you kind of think about the what ifs. Like, what if you're driving down the freeway at 80 miles an hour and your wheels fall off of your car? Well, let's talk about that, and let's maybe have a game plan in our hip pocket just in case that happens, So one of the contingencies that we had come up with was we had a time based on our time on target that we had to meet, our little TOT window. We had a time that we called the cease rage time. And that was the time that we had to we just had to bonsai everything. There's no flinch.
Yeah,
we're going forward.
And bonsai just means everybody's pointed down track, and we're going. We're going to the targets. That we don't have time left. If we're going to make our TOT windows, this is the time we have to go.
That's it. We're gonna turn and we're gonna face up, and we might lose some guys, but we have to get to the target.
Yeah,
because that's what our task and purpose was, to kill the target, not sit there and spin around in the cap and wait until red air runs out of gas.
Yeah.
So we had a code word that when we reached that time, I, as the mission commander, was going to step on the fight freak where all 100 planes were flying, listening to this frequency, and I was going to say this code word. So I get up on stage that morning and I brief the entire thing. And it was really awesome. I'd practiced it a lot. I did a really good briefing. We got airborne, and sure enough, that contingency happens. We haven't knocked back the leading edge far enough, and we met that siege rage time, and we're like, dudes, we got to go. And I step on the radio and I yell the code word. So we go in, we hit the targets. Things are going well. We egress. We lost a few guys, but mission success. We hit the targets in the TOT window. Get back, and we debrief for, hours. These mass debriefs go on.
Yeah.
Right. And in the mass debrief, this is where all 300 or 400 dudes are in the room, and you're trying to get the big nuggets out. I'm not really worried about why number 2 ran himself out of gas right now. I'm really worried about, why did we miss all of the Pry 1 targets? Or why were we unable to knock down the leading edge on time? Things like that.
Yeah.
So it came up to this part of the sortie, and we debriefed it, and I thought we debriefed it well. And we're getting ready to go back to the squadrons. So we did all this in like this mass auditorium, and then we're getting ready to go back to the squadrons to debrief our individual 4 ships. And that's where you find the finer points of the execution.
Yeah, 3
right?
or 4 ship.
Why did number 2 run out of gas?
Right.
Things like that. So I was pulling out of the squadron, or the building that we had this mass debrief, pulling out, and the road, the parking lot had like a small, like a throat that you had to go through and then pull out onto the street. And so I pulled out, and this is like 10 o'clock at night on the base, right? And as soon as I pull out, woo, here come the police sirens. Like, you gotta be shitting me, man. Really? It's 10 o'clock at night. There's nobody else on base. I just debriefed for like 8 hours.
Yeah.
All I want to do is go do a 1 hour debrief of my 4 ship and get the hell out of here, right? So the cop comes up, Senior Airman Snuffy. He comes up and, dude, sir, do you know why I pulled you over? I don't fucking know, dude, but I ain't got time for this, right? Well, you didn't come to a complete stop at the road back there. It's like, and I literally turned around and pointed this. There's no fucking stop sign, dude. Well, on the military base, if there's no stop sign, then stop sign's implied and you're supposed to stop. You're supposed to come to a full stop. I was like, look, dude, I'm going on like 16 hours. I still got a couple hours left. I've got like 6 monsters in me right now, and probably a full can of chew in the back at this point. I need to go, right? My entire 4 ship's waiting in a room for me right now. And so he let me off with a warning, whatever. So I go into the debrief room. We debrief the sortie. And thankfully, it didn't take that long. We got through. We did pretty well. So we picked out some finer points, and we debriefed to it, and we walked away. So at the end, the guy who was doing my mission commander upgrade was my squadron commander. And he sat back in his chair after I got done, and I handed the pins to him. Here you go, boss. Pins are yours. He sits back and he goes, well, I guess really the only thing we have to talk about is the code word. What are you talking about? Like, that's so when I was briefing it, our code word was ball walk. We had to ball walk the MES, which means, dudes,
MES is missile engagement zone for the surface air missiles.
And that meant we're going to throw our sacks out and when we're going forward, right? Well, now keep in mind the time frame that this is going on. This is going on in like 11 or 12 or so. Sorry, no, this would have been about 13, I guess.
Okay.
So right after all that Shaw shit went down and the Air Force was going through this big freaking knee-jerk reaction, the wing commander was sitting front and center in my mission commander briefing. And when I briefed that contingency, he wrote that down. And then he went to the squadron commander and told him. And then after all that, the squadron commander came and told me, right? The squadron commander was in on all of the briefings. He was in all of the mission planning. He was the one who was taking notes on the board for like our requests for intelligence and any kind of intelligence preparation that we needed. He was the one up on the board making notes for me because he's like my helper, right? So when we came time to make all the contracts, he was the one that annotated all that. He was the one, literally, that put the word ball walk on the fucking piece of paper.
Yeah.
But when he got yelled at by the wing commander, suddenly it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so he kind of shaky fingers me a little bit. And that was my big lesson learned out of my mission commander upgrade was don't say the word ball walk on the radio. All right. So fast forward, like, I don't know, a week. And we're going to have a wrap up. We had our hot wash already. We're going to have our big wrap up and award ceremony for the thing. And so the guy that was running it was the wing patch. He gets up there and he starts telling the story. He's like, man, here it is. So the, what was he calling it? I can't remember what he called it. It was, like the superior performer of the thing or whatever. So he goes, this guy gets up here. He's got an awesome plan. Like this plan had thought of almost everything. And he delivered one of the best mission commander briefs I've seen in a long time. And the execution was near flawless. Executed on time. The contingency planning was there. He hit all the targets. He comes back and does a really, really good debrief, and everybody walked out of there learning something. But he can't be the superior performer. So he had gone and he had gotten his wife to get a little basketball about this big. And he super glued parachute cord around it and attached a leash to it. And he gave me the ball walker award for the thing. He says, I'm sorry. He pulled me aside later. He goes, dude, sorry. I got yelled at by the wing commander. I was going to give you the plaque, but I couldn't do it. The wing commander got onto me and everything. So anyways, it was super funny. And I still, of all the awards that I ever got, that is my most cherished one because that one I felt like I truly earned.
Yeah.
Like I got the ball walker award. And I don't know of anybody else on the planet, #comments. I don't know of anybody else on the planet that has a ball walker award.
I never saw that one. That's awesome.
So anyways, we were kind of pre-gaming we were talking a little bit about leadership. And I thought there were some interesting points that maybe we could pull out of that funny story. It ended up being funny. And honestly, I didn't give a shit, but it was humor. But for that squadron commander to be in on everything, and then all of a sudden when he got yelled at, now he's got a problem with it. Like, I think there could have been a different discussion to be had there. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think anytime you're in leadership, at least this is the way that I looked at it in the Air Force in particular, because here's the problem in a kind of hierarchical structure like the Air Force has is shit rolls downhill, you know? And you may not agree with the boss, but when the boss makes a decision, sometimes you just have to execute it to a certain extent. You know what I mean? But the best commanders that I ever had, and what I always tried to do as a commander was you screen the stuff that rolls downhill as much as you possibly can.
That's the key piece.
And you handle things in-house to the max extent possible. As a commander, you don't ever want to have to elevate anything about any of your guys above your level unless your hands are tied, right? There's certain things that you have to report, right? Like a DUI or things like there's some things that are outside of your control. But the things, whatever you can control, you keep it at your level. If you can squash it at the commander level, then that's what you do. Here's a great example of that. When I was at Shaw, we would go do water survival every year. We'd have to, rehack our water survival training. So we'd go up to some lake that was north of the base. It was like, I don't know, hour and a half drive out.
Oh, you didn't do it in the Pensacola Bay with all the jellyfish?
No. Yeah. We'd go up to some lake and they'd coordinate the Coast Guard, and Life Sport would rent a boat. And there was like a MWR thing there with cabins and stuff like that. So we'd show up on a Friday. A bunch of guys would rent cabins and stay the weekend. And we'd have like a big party that Friday night. But we'd go up to the lake. They'd drag us out in the boat. we'd jump over into the lake. The Coast Guard chopper would show up. They'd drop the basket. We'd climb in the basket. They'd hoist us up, give us a Chips Ahoy cookie, drop us back in. Water softener rehacked, you know. So long story short, one night, it's Friday night. I did not stay that weekend. So we kind of had the barbecue afterwards, and then I left. But a couple of the younger guys in the squadron had a little bit to drink. And the MWR Morale Welfare Recreation Facility there, they had like one of those gators, those little 6-wheel gators.
Yeah.
Well, the keys were in it, so they decided to take it for a joyride.
I love the story already.
Yeah, and they're drunk off their ass.
This is going to end well. I love this.
So they go zipping through all the cabins. There was like this little beach area down there. They end up somehow busting one of the rear axles on the thing and driving it back.
It still had another one. It's good.
Driving it back, parking it. Yeah, right. Driving it back, parking it, walking away. Right. So the next morning, I'm up at home doing whatever, and I get a call from our DO, and one of the guys that was in the Gator had left that morning because his fiance was flying in to, I think, Charlotte. So he was driving up to Charlotte to pick her up, and then they were going back to Sumter. And I get the call from the DO, and he's like, "Cass, have you talked to so and so?" And I'm like, "No, sir, what's going on?" And so I get the story, you know, and well, the MWR folks show up, their Gators all busted up, you know. Well, geez, I wonder what happened.
Was there at least a deer like zip tied in the back or something? No.
You know, they're like, "Oh, geez, I wonder what happened. There's a whole squadron of fighter pilots here, right?" So my squadron commander gets called in by the MWR guy. They start asking questions. You know, next thing I know, like the wing commander is like pressing the squadron commander for, "Hey, I want to know who this was. They're in a world of trouble." Like we're talking, you know, Article 15 type stuff, right?
Yeah.
And commander's like, "Look, do you trust me to manage this or not? You've made me a squadron
commander.
Yeah,
okay.
You've made me a squadron commander, sir. Do you trust me to manage this or not? Because I don't want to give you the name. But I can guarantee you that I will take care of this."
Yeah.
And the wing commander's like, "You got 24 hours to take care of it, right?" So I get this phone call, and I'm like, from the DO, and he's like, "Dude, I need you to get a hold of so and so, and you need to talk to him, and he needs to go over to the commander's house by this evening, and all of this stuff." So I'm like, "Okay." So I get on the phone. I was a flight commander. This guy was in my flight.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Hey, bro, where are you?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm driving back from Charlotte, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "Did you have fun last night?" He's like, what's going on?" I'm like, "Here's the deal, dude. You need to go over, you need to fess up, and you need to work with the commander to take care of this."
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he did. He went over there, fessed it up. I think he and the other guy ended up paying the commander worked it out with the MWR guys that they would pay to fix whatever was wrong with the Gator, just to kind of sweep it under the rug. And that's where it stayed. So, but that's a perfect example of not allowing it to elevate.
That's right.
Even though he was getting pressure from the boss above because the boss wanted to make an example out of somebody. And he actually, you know, he jonesed up a little bit and kind of threw his commandership out on the line a little bit by going, "Hey, do you trust me or not? Do you trust me as a commander to manage this or not? Like, you don't need to be involved in this. I can take care of this."
No, that's good. I think that's a great way to handle something like that. And the point that I was trying to make with my story was I would have hoped that my commander, who was part of the fucking process,
I know, would have said something.
That'd be like, you know, your squadron commander that you were talking about in your example, riding shotgun in the Gator.
Yeah.
Having a great old time.
Yeah.
And then hanging his dude out to dry at the end. You know, now I know my example, you know, nobody got hurt, nobody went to jail, nothing got broke, but it's, you know, kind of on principle. And I got two really good stories, but I got to choose which one I want to tell. Fuck it. I might tell them both. So I'm downrange in Afghanistan, my last deployment, and it's a 9-monther. This is brutal. Right. And I got
9 months is long.
I got 32 guys that are working for me. And we're down at Fob Salerno in the Coast Bowl of Afghanistan, way over by Pakistan. And we've got this giant area of operations. I got guys scattered out all over the place at these different little fobs. And when we left Fort Campbell, our commander pulled us into the room and he gave us 3 rules. He said, look, guys, you're going to go have a great time. I want you to do great work. But here's my 3 guidelines, right? No mishandling of weapons. Like, handle your weapon. No, we don't want any negligent discharges or accidental discharges, anything like that. That's a surefire way to get an Article 15 and really hurt your career, really damage your career. I mean, other than that, it's just not safe, right? So carry your weapons, handle your weapons appropriately. You're all trained, do well. The second thing is no mixing and matching of uniforms. Like if you're on the hillside and you're freezing to death and all you've got is the pink tutu, then wear the pink tutu. But when you get back, tell somebody and we'll get you the appropriate gear.
Right.
So take care of yourself. Make sure that you pack appropriately for warm weather, cold weather, etc. No mixing and matching of uniforms. And the third thing is, for the love of God, do not put shit on Facebook. Excuse me. So we go downrange. I had a lieutenant that was working for me at the time. He was kind of a pain in my ass because he was one of the first crops of the 13 Lima career field. And the 13 Lima they were trying to make career ALOs, career air liaison officers. Up to this point, they had been taking guys like us, and this was almost like an additional duty, similar to a staff tour. You go over, you do an air liaison gig for career broadening, which really meant we don't have people.
Yeah.
And then you go back to a cockpit. So he was one of the guys. He was one of the first initial cadre. The dude was literally a rocket scientist, and intellectually, I can't keep up with this kid.
Yeah.
Right. But and he's a rugby player, so he's like 6'5", and he's all jacked and shit.
The appropriate term is rocket surgeon.
Rocket surgeon.
Scientist. Yes,
I'll take it. I'll take it. So, they were trying to model something similar to what the SEALs do, where the officers and enlisted go through the same exact training. And I think that works for the SEALs in BUDS training, but there's a certain point where officers have to do officer things.
Yeah, you got to go do the career development stuff.
And enlisted guys have to do enlisted people things, right? Well, the Air Force didn't really have a great handle on how, and I was privy to a lot of these discussions with a lot of higher ups in there, and I was kind of adamant about this. Is like, I don't need this dude to be able to kick open doors and throw hand grenades. I need him to be able to go and sit with the brigade commander and have coffee and build a relationship with that guy, so that there's trust there. And when I say my JTACs can or can't, then he believes me, and the situation stops, right?
Yeah.
So, anyways. So I've got this lieutenant working for me, and he had kind of pissed me off a couple of times before. So I'd relegated him to night shift in the operations center, which he's sitting there playing solitaire for 8 hours. Well, he comes around Christmas time and he says, "Hey man, can I go on battlefield circulation and go see all the guys?" Yep, fine. Battlefield circ was you pack your backpack, you jump on a Black Hawk, and you go from fob to fob to fob, and you go visit with the dudes or whatever. I used to do it all the time. I'd jump in with the brigade commander because I had built that relationship.
Right.
Roscoe, come on, man. And as long as I had all my gear on, he didn't give a shit. And I loved riding with that dude because it was always a guaranteed ride home.
Yeah.
You knew you were coming home because the boss is getting the fuck home, right? So anyways, he goes out. This guy goes out around Christmas time, and he's gone for, I don't know, 5 or 6 days or so. And he comes back, and 3 or 4 days later, I got a call at like 4 o'clock in the morning on my unclassified phone. And so I answered, and I was like, "Hey, it's Captain White, and it's my commander back home." He says, "Hey, dude, have you checked your email?" I was like, "Fuck no, man. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning."
Yeah.
Well, you need to check your email and call me back. Oh, Jesus.
This can't be good.
Oh, God. I mean, like, all this shit's going through my head. I don't know what the hell's going on. So I log in, and the email from him has no subject line. All it is a picture attached to it. And I opened up the picture, and it is 6 of my guys
in pink tutus,
wearing ugly,
discharging their firearms,
wearing their outfits. They had on their pants and ugly Christmas sweaters, brandishing bandoliers of weapons and their pistols up in the air and their knives in their teeth, and there's my lieutenant in the center of the picture holding a hand grenade by the pin.
Oh, like Jesus. You got to love lieutenants.
And one of those dumbasses put that shit on fucking Facebook. This dumbass was also dumbass enough to be friends with the wing command chief master sergeant for the 93rd
on Facebook. Yes,
for the 93rd AGAL.
Brilliant.
So as soon as he posts a picture, chief sees it, passes it down the line, and it gets to my squadron commander,
the chain.
and it gets to me.
Yeah.
And so here I am dealt this. So I called my boss back. I was like, yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
And I explained to him how this lieutenant got into that position. And then from there, it's kind of his own decision making, at some point. So I hung up with the boss, and I went over to the hooch where the lieutenant sleeps, and I kicked his door a few times and woke him up. By now it's probably going on 5 o'clock in the morning. And he gets up, he's all rubbing his sleep. I was like, put some clothes on, meet me in my office. So he gets over and he comes up, and when he walked in, I said, open that picture, tell me what you think. And he opens the picture and he goes, oh fuck. Yeah, oh fuck is right. Go back to bed. So now what do you do, right? Yes, I want to handle this at the lowest level.
Sure.
But
it's already been elevated.
But my squadron commander knows this, right?
Yeah.
And this is one of those rare times in my career where I worked for 3 different people. I had my boss back home who actually wrote my OPR. I had my squadron commander downrange who was up at Bagram, who basically controlled our lives for that 9 months. And then I had the brigade commander who we had to work any kind of tactical movements of any of my guys had to go through him to make sure that he still had coverage of his battle space. So it was really a delicate situation with a lot of politicking involved and a lot of back and forth. Well, my boss back home says, yeah, dude, this is all over. So now my hands are tied. I have to call the squadron commander up at Bagram, who was a bipolar motherfucker. Like, this dude was Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. You never knew what you were going to get when you called him. And so I called him and I explained to him the situation, and he goes, I don't know, Roscoe, what do you want, man? What do you want from me? I was like, well, I can handle this, or you can handle it. If you want me to handle it, I'll take care of it. He goes, no, have all those guys report to me in 24 hours in a military fashion. Okay. So we're 200 miles from Bagram. So we got to coordinate flights. I got to get all these guys on helicopters from their fob to Salerno, and then get them up to Bagram and have them report. And man, it was such a clusterfuck. And then I have to go over to the brigade commander and explain to him how I'm going to do the shell game.
How you're going to shuffle everybody.
Because dudes have to get fired over this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, dude, come on. You've left me with no other choice. You cannot be in charge if these are the kinds of decisions you're making.
That's right.
You have to have some kind of discretion at some point. So sitting there with the brigade commander, and I explained to him how I'm going to move people around, and he finally looks at me and goes, Roscoe, why are you doing all this? And I was like, oh, I got to tell the guy. So I gave him kind of the 60-second version of what happened, and he like ejects out of his chair. Goddamn JTAG's fucking Air Force, and you guys with all your fucking beards and your cool guy shit, and I just had to sit there and kind of take it. And all right, dude, at the end of the day, don't worry about it. I got this. Right? We'll move the people around. All of those dudes end up going to Bagram. They all got LORs. They all got fired and ended up working night shift in the TOC for the rest of the fucking time, and ends up being a kind of a black spot on their career for a lot of those guys. Cause a lot of these dudes are up for promotions.
Sure.
And now, with that on your record, I can't write you an EPR that reflects 364 days of really awesome shit.
Yeah.
You made one really bad decision.
Complete buffoonery.
Yeah. So there's definitely balance to be had in that leadership piece of it too.
Yeah, you never want to go wild dingo, that's for sure. I think what's important about that story though is like you have to know your role, especially for that lieutenant, right? So and I think often what happens is guys just want to be part of the bro network. They want to they want people to like them. They want to feel like they're fitting in.
Yeah.
But and we all do, right? I mean, that's human nature. But in the military, and it was a little bit different in the fighter squadron in some ways too. It wasn't, because you kind of have, your captains and below, your captains and your lieutenants, and then you've got your majors and your lieutenant colonels, and there's kind of a divide that gets drawn between that, the ADOs and above, and then the shop chiefs and below. But a story that I have that's similar to that, and I don't know if I've told this on the podcast. If I have, just tell me. But when I was at Shaw the second time, and I was actually the chief of stand and val for the group, and we had a young weapons officer show up. When you're a weapons officer in a squadron, especially when you're a young captain, if you were one of those dudes that gets to weapons school early, a little on the early side, you're still pretty young. You've only been in the jet for 5 years.
Is this the one where he plays crud with the commander?
Yeah. So I told the story, right? Yeah. But that's just it. So I think the importance of that is you got to know your role, right? And sometimes, you may be at the bro level and you may want to operate at the bro level. And I think it's good to do that because you want to keep a pulse on that. But if you're in a position too, you're in a managerial position or, just kind of some position in leadership that pulls you away from that, you've got to find that balance between the two.
It's hard too, man. Like in our position downrange, we had 32 enlisted guys and it was me and him at the top, and we had a master sergeant who, that's a whole nother story, but I ended up firing him and sending him back home and they sent me another master sergeant. That guy never got promoted again after that. But I wrote that guy's EPR at the end of that deployment, and he'd been gone for 3 or 4 months already. And I had to write his EPR because I was still technically his raider. And the senior master sergeant in our squadron, he called me and he says, "Dude, I've been doing this for 20 something years and I've never seen an EPR that bad." Wow. So, well, you told me to capture what was in the paperwork. We can fluff it a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's a wet signature, man. Yeah. I mean, but what you're talking about though is knowing your role in your team and the clear definition of duties in there. And there is a blurry line, I think, especially in that battlefield airman situation that we were in. There is a bit of a gray area for sure. Consider the training that he had gone to up to that point. He'd gone through every land nav exercise, hand grenade throwing exercise, the obstacle course race, mucking through the jungles of, North Florida and all that stuff. He had gone through it with those guys. The same training that the Airman First Class was going through, my lieutenant was going through. So on one hand, I can't necessarily fault him for that. But on the other hand, you have to understand the definition or the clear line of affinity between the officers and the enlisted guys and what your role is in this tactical air control party.
Yeah, it's not just that though either, man. It's, you've gone through the training with them. You've probably built relationships with some of those guys, and you're close and it's, you're in a combat zone. So I think in some ways it even becomes a little looser sometimes just socially.
Yeah, for sure.
In those environments. But at the end of the day, you're still a leader.
Yeah.
And you're still responsible for the edicts that the commander has given you and what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. And the only thing that he had to do in that situation was go, "This is a really stupid fucking idea and we shouldn't do this, you guys." That's it.
Yeah, guys.
And everything would have been fine. And 6 careers would have been salvaged.
I know.
Or protected.
Well,
but he didn't. He chose to put on the stupid fucking sweater and play fucking reindeer games.
No, and I don't want to put that solely on him because anybody in that picture could have said, "Guys, all the way down to the senior airman that was in that picture, he probably could have stopped that at any point, stop that train from going off the tracks." Now, ultimately, the responsibility, I don't want to say even the responsibility, but he should have had enough professionalism at some point to go, "Hey guys, let's just knock this off."
Yeah.
But anybody in that chain could have stopped that. Remember the old Swiss cheese model from,
Sure.
Anybody can pull the plug on that one.
Yeah. Or just, guys, this is a really bad idea and walk away.
Yeah.
And if they choose to go through with it, well, you told them it was a bad idea. You weren't privy to it. You weren't part of it. I mean, but you've got to have some semblance of where you live in the world that you're operating in and what your responsibilities truly are.
Yeah.
And how far those things can go.
Well, we're products of the decisions we make.
Yeah.
And that guy made a decision. All of those guys, all 6 of those dudes in that picture, I've got the picture at my house. I'll show you tonight. All those dudes made a decision and everybody thought it was a good idea at the time.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out it wasn't.
Yeah.
So here's another story about things that are good ideas in the moment that maybe turn out to be not good ideas. Actually, this one's pretty funny, but So we're going down to Hill Air Force Base for Combat Hammer, and it's my first deployment, or my first squadron rather. And I was still the snacko at the time. I was a lieutenant. I was a snacko, and the guy that I had taken over snacko from still lived with a lieutenant in the other squadron there at Mountain Home, and that guy, the roommate, he kept the keys for their squadron vehicle at his house, and my buddy, he knew this, right? And so their squadron car was a pimped out limo that had T-bolts written down the side of it and shit. All right. So I got this great idea. We're going to Combat Hammer. I'm going to steal the T-bolts limo and take it, because I was part of the team that was supposed to drive down there. There were a few of us, and we had a guy that was bringing a tow behind enclosed trailer where everybody was throwing in their mountain bikes and their golf clubs and all that stuff, so that on the weekends we could go out and have some fun. And then I was going to drive, and initially I was going to take my truck, but I was like, fuck that, man. I'm going to steal that damn limo. Take that down there. I can put 10 people in that thing and get to work and back in it, right? Use it for the push plan. So my buddy gets me the keys, and me and Bull Garris jump in this car, and we drove it to Salt Lake City, down to Hill Air Force Base. All right. When I showed up at the hotel, there was a guy waiting out front for me. When I pulled into the thing and we started unloading our gear, there was a guy already waiting out front. And his first words were, "You need to go see the squadron commander. He's in the restaurant." Oh, shit. Okay. So I go into the squadron commander, and he stands me up at attention in my civilian clothes and starts berating me for stealing the fucking limo. Where's the goddamn car? And all this. I'm like, oh, shit. I didn't realize this was that big. It was a prank, man. Yeah. Come on. We used to steal cars all the time. So the story had gone something like this. While I'm driving the 3.5 hours down to Ogden, the story goes something like this. The dude wakes up and the car's gone. So he panics and calls their squadron commander, right? And so goes, somebody stole our fucking limo. Well, after about 10 minutes, they figure out who stole the limo. And apparently, according to my squadron commander, I was broke down somewhere between Mountain Home and Ogden. I had blown up the engine in the car and ran it out of oil, and I was like wrecked on the side of the highway or some shit. Where's the goddamn car, Roscoe? It's right there. That's their limo. It's fine. Like, we drove it down here. It's no big deal. It's actually full of gas. You know, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
And so
we'll wash it before we take it back.
after much gnashing of teeth, he finally backed off a little bit and goes, okay, prank gone bad. All right. So the prank didn't go bad. Your perception of the prank was bad, right? Yeah. This is the purple baby dishwasher telephone game, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, we used the car for the push plan for the next 2 weeks. And by the way, when you're driving through downtown Salt Lake City in a limo with blacked out windows and porn playing on the TV in the back, you get some looks. I'm just saying. The T-bolts had it stocked well. I'll just say that. Anyways, so the deal was the squadron commander made me go and get an oil change in the car and wash it and detail it, and then deliver it to the other squadron commander's house on a Sunday morning. That was my punishment for the whole thing. I'm like, come on, man, this is just a prank.
Yeah,
it's no big deal.
We did something similar when I was at Punk at Coonson. We had 2 F-16 squadrons at Coonson, and then there's another F-16 squadron up at Osan. And we had one of our buddies diverted into Osan one night, and so he had the cipher lock code to the Fiends, which is the F-16 unit in Osan, to get into their squadron, because it's all secured on the flight line and stuff like that. So a bunch of the lieutenants, the punks, me included, one Friday, drove up to Osan, and we waited until the Fiends would party in their bar, and then they'd go to the O Club. Well, they leave for the O Club, and so we wait, and we sneak into the squadron. We go into their bar, and dude, we stole fucking everything. We took, to include their mugs. We took the tops off the kegs. We took anything we could fit in our car that was on the wall. We took. They had like half of a drone that had been hit at a Wessup that was hanging from the ceiling. We took that down and threw it in it. We took everything and drove back down to Coonson and held at ransom for about a month.
Yes.
And then the Fiends came down about a month later in mass and we had this huge party, and they had to pay us. I mean, we had cases of Jack Daniels, like I think the overall tally was like 16 cases of Jack Daniels, and probably like 48 cases of beer.
That was the ransom.
That was the ransom to get all their shit back. It was so much
That's
fun.
awesome.
Yeah,
see, but that, you know, that just, it promotes a little camaraderie.
It does.
You know, like we stole the ambulance at Seymour Johnson, the 333rd, the Lancers. They had an ambulance, an old ambulance. They called it the Ambulancer. And we stole that a couple of times. We go cruise the base in it, you know, and like that, those kind of pranks, man, those were always fun. It's like painting the rock out in front of the wing commander's building or something, you know. But I guess some of them could probably be taken a little bit too far. But it's, to me, as long as it's in the spirit, this is always my litmus test. And I tell the kids this. We were trying to figure out what's your punishment for losing fantasy football this year? And Nikki's the commish of our family league, and we got a few of the friends involved in it. So we got like 8 people in here. And we were talking about, you know, you have to get a picture running around in a tutu, or then it went to you have to run around the block naked. And then one guy texts and he goes, you have to commit a felony. And I'm like, whoa, holy shit. You know, let's dial this back a little bit. And I had to explain to him the rules to shenanigans.
Yeah.
Right. There's some rules. Nobody gets hurt. Nothing gets broke, and nobody goes to jail.
Yeah.
Like
there's gotta be some left and right boundaries.
Those are your bumpers, right? Yeah. So anyways, pranks. It's sad now that we're on the outside looking in that we don't really get to partake in that too much.
Well, I'll tell you what, a lot of stuff that we probably did when we were younger.
Oh, you get nailed to the cross.
Yeah,
now,
you wouldn't get away with anymore.
Yeah, so a lot of that stuff. I've heard some stories, man, from some of the guys who are still in it, and they said, man, I've just even stopped going to the roll calls and the first Fridays because guys are getting in trouble for things that are said behind closed doors, and it's just, it's a different culture, nowadays. And I've even had this talk with Caleb and even Colin, who's in right now. Caleb wants to go in, Colin's in it, and I was like, guys, you got to really, you got to watch your P's and Q's, man, because it's a different. And what's funny is, like, I sit down and I talk to Katie's dad. Yeah. And, he grew up in it from the 70s forward. And then I kind of took the mantle and now I'm passing it over to my boys. And it was so much different when he was in it, and it's like every generation has their own version of this.
Yeah, they do.
And it seems to just
social media has trashed everything.
Social media. I mean, we just do a whole episode on how social media sucks. And it just sucks the life and the fun out of a lot of things too.
It does. So what was your you got a good story about like favorite live drop you ever did? Favorite live drop story?
I think it's a toss up between a GBU 28 or a GBU 15.
So tell the difference between the two.
I will. The GBU 28 is excuse me, it's a 5,000-pound bunker buster. They were initially designed and built out of old howitzer rifle barrels, and they pack them with tritonol and a laser and a guidance unit on the front. And we were, at the time, the only airframe that would carry it in the Strike Eagle. We carried it on our center line, and when the nose wheel would come down, there's a door. The nose wheel door is on the trailing edge of the nose wheel, and it was only about that far, maybe 4 or 5 inches from the nose of this bomb. That's how long this thing is. Yeah. It's fucking huge, right? And the planning process for it it's very specific, because you're going to drop this thing from 30, 40,000 feet, and it's going to go into a flight profile that basically puts it at a 90-degree angle, and you're going to put it into a hole no bigger than this table. Yeah. So the planning process for this, I mean, down to the wind models at every 1,000 feet of altitude and all that stuff, it's
so you can get your penetration effects.
Exactly. It's fairly laborious. And so we had a 2-ship. We were at Combat Hammer out of Hill, and we took off the 2-ship, and the deal was go to the tanker, get gas, and then you basically wait in your hold until it's your turn to go drop on your target wherever out there in the Uter. And we come off the tanker, and number 2 has he has a hydraulic issue, so we have to go back to Hill and drop him off. And we're talking to the top 3, the guy sitting at the desk, and we're going, hey man, our jet's good, our bomb is good. Do you want us to go drop this, yes or no? He says, yeah, all right, so we're going to put 2 in the cable. By the way, he's the only guy to ever take a cable with a GBU GBU-28 on board, so 5,000 pounds of extra shit, and he still took the cable, and it was non-eventful. So we end up going back out. We hit the tanker again, and we're just waiting. And while we were on the tanker, my sniper pod failed.
Oh.
So I'm like, oh, God dang it. Well, I still got this big ass bomb. And so I'm on the tanker with like 3 other jets waiting to get in. They're over here on the left observation. And on the tanker, I kind of went, hey, any of you guys want to laze in my GBU-28? And the radio just starts blowing up.
Sure.
I was like, yeah. And the one guy in the back's like, woo. And so we did a buddy guide on the thing, and we put it into a hole about this big and never found the bomb because it went down like 500 or 600 feet or something. But that one was pretty cool. And then the GBU-15 was kind of similar. GBU-15 is a TV guided 2,000 pound bomb. And we had a data link pod that we would carry on the center line of the Strike Eagle. And bomb comes off from like, 15, 20 miles away. It's got these giant fins on it. And the Wizzo in the back staring at the screen, we fly the bomb into a window about that size from 15 or 20 miles away. So that one was pretty neat too. And we shacked,
cool.
we shacked that target. And it's like, you got the sun glare. So you got your in-flight guide and you're trying to block the
so
sun and you're flying these fucking crosshairs, and so so the AGM-130 and the GBU-15, that was a whole separate upgrade for the pilots and Wizzos because it was so labor intensive that they didn't not just every knucklehead got to do that, like GBU-12s or something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. What about you?
I got to drop a little bit in combat, but my favorite live drop was probably a ride at weapons school because it was JDAM. I dropped an airburst JDAM, 2,000 pounder, 31 alpha with an airburst, high to function 15 feet. And it was fun, man. I mean, the ride itself was kind of built to give you every opportunity to fail because it was start a SAT phase, surface attack, and I think it was a 4v8. So 4 blue, 8 red. We had to fight our way in, and then we're carrying live JDAM, and you had 2 different targets, but they were not co-located. So they gave you every opportunity to over-G the jet and the recoveries and all that stuff. And I'll never forget, we're penetrating the MES, the Missile Engagement Zone, and I'm actually in a threat reaction. And I used to, anytime I started to, because you just, at weapons school, once you started threat reacting, it was basically you'd go from one threat reaction into your next threat reaction because you're just getting lit up by everything. And, and of course, we didn't have any suppression assets with us, right? And so I'm threat reacting for, I think it was an SA-6, and I call up the target in the upfront controls, the steer point, and I realize that it is, no kidding, 90 degrees left at 3 miles. And we had done, like when you talked about contingency planning, we had to go in. This is just part of the fun of weapons school, but we had to go in and weaponeer. And so part of what we would do for our contingency planning was we would actually figure out, based on what we were hitting, what altitude and what airspeed, what was our min out, because we knew we were going to be threat reacting.
Min altitude, min airspeed to get weapons effects.
Min airspeed to get weapons effects.
Yep.
So I'm in the leaf coming uphill on this threat reaction, and I tip in, and I had this, and this just happened to be, so I'm in this leaf, and I tip in, and I am right at the bottom of the launch acceptability region, but I have my altitude, my airspeed, and I let that bitch go.
Oh yeah.
And you let a 2,000 pounder, now the F-16 is not nearly as big as a Strike Eagle.
Kind of goes ka-thunk.
But you let that 2,000 pounder go, and you're still carrying 2,000 pounds on the other side, and the jet just is like, but it doesn't want to come back up, right? But it was awesome, man. I come off, and I'm still in my threat reaction as I'm coming back uphill, and then I tip over and I look, and when that thing went off, dude, it looked like a little mushroom cloud. It was like a
those
mini
are
nuke.
cool.
It was badass, that airburst.
Yeah.
I
mean, 2,000 pounds of hate blowing up. That's dropping bombs is cool, guys. Like, it's
a half-mile frag pattern.
Yeah, I had this conversation with a guy the other day, a Navy SEAL dude, and we were talking about the difference between, when we in our jets were flying by and we're so far removed from the destruction that bomb causes versus those guys are up close and personal.
Yeah, they get to feel the concussion.
They're knifing a guy in the throat. They're seeing that effect. They're feeling that effect. But for us, it's a little bit it's almost like watching it on TV.
Yeah.
But
it's a little bit like a video game.
But still, I mean, it's pretty darn. It's pretty. So we had.
It was a crowd pleaser for sure.
Yeah, gosh, I got some cool JDAM stories too. But one of my this is my first ALO deployment, and we're down west of Kandahar at a small little fob. We had our area of operations wasn't real big down here, and we're in the Arghandab River Valley, and that's where that was like the hotbed for the opium and marijuana trade down there. So they had a lot of IED factories, what they would call IED factories, where they're building the different components and putting them all together so that the bad guys can go out, dig holes, put these bombs in the ground. They pressure plates or washing machine timers or you name it, man. They were pretty ingenious in the way that they did these things. Well, they found this area that they called a IED factory, and they wanted us to make it go away. So over about a 2-week period, we come up with the planning for this, and we had something like 25 or 30 DPIs, designated points of impact. And we got scheduled from the higher ups. We got scheduled 2 B1s to come in here with a mix of 2,000 and 500 pounders, 2,000 pound GBU-31s, 500 pound GBU-38s, and kind of a mixed load depending on which target needed how much, destructive power.
Yeah.
And so we set these guys up facing each other. And at about 10 miles or so, they were to hit the pickle button and then check away and do this, right? And this is all happening at night. So I'm in the TOC. It's like 2:00 in the morning, and I'm watching this play out on the screens, and my JTAC down the road, he's controlling it and everything. And I'm just kind of listening up, top cover. I'm in the TOC. I'm talking to the battle captains and
That's
all that.
the Tactical Operations Center.
Yeah, thanks. And so the 2 B1s go, hey, 25 weapons away or whatever it was. And you wait and you wait and you wait. And about a minute later, boom, 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 boom. And then, dude, so the building that I'm in is like a plywood, just studs and plywood kind of building. And we got the big screens up on the wall up here where we're watching the whole battle space and everything. I thought the fucking walls were coming down in this thing. And this whole thing is happening probably 10 clicks away from us down the road. So we're not really that close to it. But when you have that much ordnance going off at one time, I mean, we're talking about somewhere between probably 40 and 50 weapons exploding within a 10 or 15 second period.
Yeah.
It was it was awesome, for one. But man, the concussion from that far away, I thought the TVs were going to fall off the damn walls.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
That's cool. I got a good B1 story for you. It was another weapons school sortie. We were doing a DEDVOL, which is destruction of enemy air defenses. And it was kind of a combination of the C model squadron, us, and then we had 2 B1s because the C models were going to go down. We had red air. So when C models were going to go out in front, try to clean the picture. We were going to push behind, pick up any leakers. And then the B1s were supposed to follow. And we had kind of split the area of operations into 2 sides. And depending on where the surface air missiles came up, we were kind of going to flow assets as appropriate. Mm-hmm. And so the B1s are starting in the north, but they're supposed to split, right? So that we can have one each in each AO until we kind of get that, and then we'll move people. Or if we get a sense of what it's going to be, then there was a lot of flexibility to the game plan. I'll just say that. So we're sitting there, and it's about 2 or 3 minutes before the actual vol push starts. So for those that are listening, we have vulnerability periods. They're set. They start at a certain time. They end at a certain time. So you don't really go into the airspace until that time starts, even though you own the airspace.
It's kind of like your on station.
Yeah.
Time.
And red air is kind of sauntering. They're, I don't know, at Nellis, they're probably 100 miles away. But if you trip that line, they assume that you started your vol and they start coming down track. So about 2 minutes before the first push is supposed to happen, which is the C models, I'm watching the link, and here go the 2 bones.
Leroy Jenkins, man.
And so I'm calling on Freak. I'm like, hey, dude, what are you like? What's going on?
Oh, I've seen this story.
They're not. Long story short, dude, they get like 45 miles downrange before they realize that.
God damn it, Leroy.
that something's not right because they're not hearing any comm. So they push 2 minutes early, and they weren't even on the right fucking frequency.
Yes.
They're not even on the right fight frequency, right?
Crowbar, if you're listening, these are your people.
They're hearing nothing.
Yes.
They're 40 miles. Like by the time we figured out what was going on, the C models pushed, but they're like 40 miles in trail, and those bones don't go slow, you know? And they just got fucking destroyed by Red Air. Red Air was just like, it was like sharks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They were done.
Well, I mean, that's a big, juicy target, man.
Yeah, it was so funny.
Yeah. Those guys, you know,
Idiots.
the Strike Eagle is, we used to say it was like the flying tennis court, man. You're not hiding from anybody. Your best defense in a Strike Eagle is a good offense.
Yeah.
At that, I mean, you got 8 missiles and a whole bunch of bombs. Just start blowing shit up and hope that you can get out of there.
Very different than a Viper. They're probably dead before they see you.
You know, we fought against the Vipers and the aggressor guys didn't go out too dirty. They didn't have that much shit hanging off their wings and stuff. So it's very fucking hard to see, man. But the blue guys flying with us in the cap or whatever with all the stuff hanging off, they were pretty. Yeah, Strike Eagle has pretty good radar anyway.
Yeah.
So C model story, WIC support, and my weapons officer comes up to me. He's a good friend of mine. He comes up to me and goes, "Hey man, I got a good deal for you. Friday night, we're going to go out and be Red Air. We're going to be the low altitude strikers for these C model guys doing this check ride." Like, all right, cool. Sounds great, man. Cool. Friday afternoon, go fly, rage. You're raging into the sunset. And our lane was going to be the very north end of the knitter, which is very mountainous.
Terrain is.
Yeah, it's super cool, man. And you're basically going into just south of Tonopah where the cool targets are. And we're like, this is going to be badass, man. Good low level, quick debrief because it's the guy's upgrade ride and we're out of here. Right. Yep. So we go out, we execute, everything's fine. And it was really cool, man. Like when we pushed, we're down at 500 feet just raging through the mountains. But I look up and there's 4 contrails coming at like 60,000 feet. The top of the airspace, I think, was 50. So in the debrief, it was, we were at 50,000 feet ish. But yeah, they were way up there. But the 4 contrails, and then you just start hearing, "You're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead." And obviously we died. We end up going back to the base. So we get back to Nellis, land, get back into the squadron, something like 6-7 o'clock. And we're expecting, I mean, this guy's, he's been a black border patch for a long time. It's his annual check ride. It's probably not going to be that big of a deal. We'll get some lessons learned. We'll get out of there on a Friday night, right? Oh no.
That's the weapons school.
Oh, dude.
He's got chalk out.
Son, he pulls out a chalkboard that's maybe no bigger than this table, and he starts taking his chalk. And there, I guarantee you, there wasn't a piece of chalk on that chalkboard on the little tray that was any bigger than that right there. Little tiny scraps of chalk, and he started chiseling the edges of them, and he drew that entire fucking fight
on a chalkboard.
Dude, we were there for like 6 hours.
I know. Those C model guys are weird that way.
But I tell you what was really cool, man, was at the end of it, it was a beautiful picture of exactly what happened. The guy was really, really good at what he did. But I've seen these guys. I've heard them talk about it, but I'd never seen it until that point where he chiseled that chalk down. And when a jet would do a barrel roll like this, he would twist that chalk and show it in there, just like you were drawing BFM lines. And it's very difficult to draw vertical lines.
Yeah, it's tough to make 3 dimensions out of a 2-dimensional board.
It's very hard. But this guy, man, I tell you what, I was impressed. I mean, I'm a young lieutenant at the time, but I was impressed from a fact of, he recreated that from memory, and it looks awesome.
Yeah.
It was all color coded and very good at what he did.
Yeah, we had to in the TI and ACT phase, we had to draw everything before we could see the ACMI lines at weapons school.
That's hard.
It is, but we didn't use shock, thank God. Yes, that's cool. I'll tell you, one of the stories from weapons school, one of my favorite stories at weapons school was the story that I recognize that those who fight and run away live to fight another day. And so we're doing an airfield takedown sortie, and it's an 8v16. So it was one of our first 8-ship targeting rides. So we've got 8 Vipers. We had 16 C models. So we had 12 from a squadron that was there for WIC support, and then we had 4 more from the 422 at Nellis. And then we have an airfield on the west side of the NTTR that we're supposed to take down. The complicated part of it was they didn't give us good pictures of like what's actually on the airfield for real, like the mock-ups and everything. Yeah. And they basically gave us a list of here's the things that we want hit in priority order. So there's like 6 things. It's like, C2 nodes, aircraft in the open, aircraft in revetments, kind of down the line. And then, but you don't know what the airfield actually looks like.
Yeah.
As far as like what's actually in the open or revetted or things like that. So there was a couple of DPIs that you knew that you were going to hit that were priority 1, the squadron command, the ops building and things like that, fuel depot. But the rest of it was like a pickup game. So we had to like grid the airfield and come up with this game plan. And so what we're going to do is we're going to fight our way in. We're going to get rid of the 16 red air. And then we're basically going to go in 4+4, about 8 to 10 miles in trail. First 4 ships going to roll in and drop on priority, hit some of the priority DPIs, and then if there's things that move up the list based on what's actually there, we're going to hit those, and then we're going to pass to the second 4 ship. Hey, look in grid A3, aircraft in the open.
Yeah,
right.
Just like a recon pass first. Yeah. Okay.
So we fight our way in. One of our guys gets killed on the ingress, and it was permanent kill removal at this point in the SAT phase for us. So he drops his bombs and he goes back to Nellis.
Yep. So
we're down 1, and was number 4 in the one of the IPs in the other 4 ship. My 4 ship is the first one in. We hit our targets. We pass to the second 4 ship, and we had these reset caps that we were going to get into so that we could come back out and basically like an 8-ship wall. And so we're in the reset cap. They go in. 3 and 4 have to reattack. Well, by the time they get done with their goat dance of threat reactions and reattacking and stuff like that, my 3 and 4 run out of gas. So they go down low 300 feet and start hugging the south side of the NTTR to get back across the blue line before they run out of gas. So I got a 2-ship left in the north. These guys finally come off as a 3-ship. So we got 5 jets. In the north, we had 3 AMRAAMs left between the 2 of us. And the initial picture is a 3-group Champagne. All of it's heavy. And
3 AMRAAMs ain't going to get that done.
So we got a 4-ship in the north that's heavy bogey. We got a 4-ship in the south that's heavy hostile. And then we got a 4-ship in trail that's heavy hostile. And so I'm in the north with my IP, and we're trying to upgrade the deck, and we can't get it. And so we're coming up on Mar. I beam north. He beams south. We're at 32,000 feet. And then I basically go roll over, pull inverted, and I go 90 degrees straight down until I get to 300 feet.
Yeah.
Idle on the board so I don't overspeed the jet. Get to 300 feet, and I'm in the north, which is where the good terrain is, right?
Yeah.
So I spend the rest of the next 10 minutes just ridgeline to ridgeline. Run through a valley. I'd get a little tickle on the raw from the C models trying to find me. I'd beam, chaff, hit the next ridgeline, do that, get across the blue line, come back home. It was so much fun, man.
Yeah.
But I was like, it was the 4-ship bogeys are trying to find us. The 3-ship in the south took care of this 4-ship in the south, and then they ran for Texas Lake, basically.
Yeah.
The 4-ship in trail split like this, 2 leaning to the south and 2 leaning to the north. And the 2 that were leaning on us were the ones that were trying to find us down low. It was so much fun.
That area up there in the north, if you get tagged as being a low striker in the north up there, you're gonna have a good day.
Yeah, it's great.
Even if you miss your target and die, it's still pretty fucking fun.
Yeah, it was so much fun.
We always used to get, we had the terrain following radar, so we'd get stuck in the south striker train down here on the night vols, where you're basically parallel the north edge of the container. You go in, and it's ducks in a row. It's just 4 ships lined up like this, all in terrain following radar. Go in, hit your target. And it's like, come on, man, I want to go and rage in the mountains.
Yeah. Somebody invariably always busts a container on every flag. So what you guys don't know is
don't be that guy.
Area 51 is up on the Nellis Range, and there's a square piece of airspace that sits around it that you can't fly through. And if you even touch the line at a red flag, you get sent home.
Guys in dark sunglasses will be meeting you at the ramp, and you get
the men in black. You don't remember this
flashy thing. No, we actually got talked to during, it must have been a flag, I guess, but we got talked to because every now and then when you're flying up there, you can cue your sniper pod in and look at Groom Lake. I mean, it's there. It's the fact that Groom Lake exists is not unclassified. You can look it up on Google Earth. Well, they didn't like us looking at it with our sniper pods because of maybe what was going on down there or whatever. So we kind of got shaky fingered a little bit on that one. Guys, stop doing that shit. Just, just it's over there. Everybody knows it's there. Just move along.
Don't look.
Yeah. Dude, we could sit here and do this literally all day. I've got like 10 stories in the queue now
same
to go. But if you want to turn this into a 2-hour episode, I'm game. Otherwise, we'll maybe save it for another one.
Yeah, it sounds good.
I think these are fun. It keeps it a little lighter and
gives us an opportunity to share a few stories.
This is either going to be a really good way to close out the year, or it's going to be a good way to open up 2024. So,
well, Guy, we get questions a lot about and requests a lot to tell some of the stories from our time in, and some more that's just fighter pilot centric stuff. So that's why we decided to do this episode today.
Yeah, and I think there's enough similarity and enough differences to make it really interesting, and realize too, if you're a young guy that's listening and you have a desire to maybe get into some of this kind of stuff, there's a lot of guys out here that'll sit down and talk to you and tell you these kinds of things, and start reaching out. If you have questions or if you're just curious about something, reach out to us and
email us, guys.
Yeah, I'll gladly sit down and talk.
We'll respond. We'll give you a call, whatever it is.
Yeah, kids come over to my house all the time and we talk about this kind of stuff. So I'm not a recruiter. But I ended up having a really good career and a really good life because of what I got to do in the military.
Yeah, me too. And the only thing I'd say is, we were talking about this a little bit in the pregame, is what we did was a ton of fun.
It's also a lot of work.
But it was also, a ton of fucking work. It was stressful at times. It was hard on us. It was hard on our families. I mean, it took a lot of commitment and discipline and resiliency and a lot of the things that we talk about on the podcast. If you want to be good at what we did, and again, it's not just about being good for the day. You have to consistently sustain high performance over a 20-year career. It's exhausting at times.
I think you get good at it the more you do it.
Well,
but it doesn't make it easier necessarily.
The tasks that you do, as you get more comfortable in the jet, more comfortable with the tactics, your situational awareness bubble starts to grow. Then the more mundane tasks that become easier, they become more routine, But there's always still the pressure to perform. There's always still, developing the right game plan. How much effort do I put into the debrief? Mm-hmm. What are the good, valid lessons learned and takeaways? What do I need to be working on today? There's always something about your game that you can be working on to improve, right?
Well,
so it's a never-ending process in that sense.
There's a couple of layers there too in what you just said, and one of them is that, remember that Robin Olds quote about fighter pilots and attitude?
Yeah.
And it talks about that desire to do well in front of your peers. I don't want to be the limfac.
No.
I don't want to be the weakest link on the team. I want to be number one. And so that's my motivation. That's my drive. And I might not always be that guy, but I can always compete to try to get there.
Or you're always striving.
Yeah. And the other layer that out of what you just said was, you get, when you start out in something, and it really doesn't matter what it is, it's highlighted in our career field in the progression. But when you start out in something, over time, you're going to get a little bit better, and you're going to get experience, and you're going to gain knowledge, and all of that is going to go into making you a very well-rounded performer. Well, that comes at a cost, because eventually you're going to get given more responsibility, and you're going to get upgraded to something different, and that process starts all over. So you go from wingman to 2-ship flight lead to 4-ship flight lead to instructor to mission commander, and each one of those is a different level of responsibility. And it never stops. It just never stops, man. Because from day one, you're training to be the best wingman that you can be, and eventually somebody's going to say, "Hey, you're a pretty good wingman. Let's make you a flight lead."
Yeah.
And that ball just keeps on rolling.
Well, and it's not just the upgrade process too, but the jets never stop evolving either. That's right. And so now we've got a new munition that we have to train on, and you got to get smart on that. Or there's new symbology on the link that you've got to get. Or we get this new targeting pod capability, or this. Right, there's always adding things to the jet. Something changes, new tactics, new flows, new radios. I remember when we got ARC-210s in the Viper, and everybody's nugget exploded for about 3 weeks. Nobody was on the right fucking frequency. It's just,
we did the same thing. And when we got ARC-210s, they added a radio to us, so we went from 2 radios to now 3 radios, and they're all different.
Yeah, 3's too many.
It was convenient. Anyways. It was nice.
Right on.
All right, dude.
All right.
Let's do this again because, like I said, I got 10 in the queue right now that could be told.
Right on.
Fun.
Be the change.
Be the one.
Hey guys, one of the consistent topics we discuss on the Be One Change One podcast is the importance of resiliency, seizing opportunities, and choosing courage over comfort to achieve what is important to you. So if you're an outdoorsman, we would encourage you to explore Sick Bear Outdoors.
That's right. Sick Bear believes in using the symbol of resilience to empower your outdoor adventures and to experience the wildness of life's trails. Sick Bear adopts the bear's approach by fearlessly embracing nature, standing your ground, and courageously facing challenges. Get out of your comfort zone at sickbear.com. That's SICBEAR.com. Visit sickbear.com for all of your individual and family hunting, fishing, or outdoor adventure needs. Thanks for flying with the Be One Change One podcast. If you got something out of this show, then be the one and share it in your circles of influence.
You can be our wingman through our website at www.be1change1.com. That's B and the number 1, change and the number 1.com.
We invite you to be the one and join our fighter squadron on social media at Be1Change1 on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can follow us at Paul Roscoe White on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, as well as Roscoe's website, www.paulroscoewhite.com.
You can email us from the website and please leave comments, share, and ask questions, or leave ideas of things you would like to discuss on future podcasts. Most importantly, be the one that helps us win the algorithm by leaving a review on whatever platform you're listening on.
Thanks for joining. Until next time, be the one.